Elden Ring's exclusive things, and a lot of things being rebuilt. I'm Matthew, this is Watch It Played, and welcome to the Board Game News. Perhaps it was only a matter of time, but with Bloodborne games, Dark Souls board games, a veritable plethora of other video games being analogized, Steamforged have announced that Elden Ring, the board game, will be coming to Kickstarter at some time in the near future. According to ICV2, Elden Ring, the board game, will support up to 4 players who have all become tarnished and as such are required to make their way through the lands between, which as in the video game is really just a bad place to be. Also, it's weird. It's a world of decay and rot where the grandeur that once stood is just all around unpleasant. You tarnished gamers will encounter locations, characters and of course enemies from the Elden Ring video game, fighting grand battles in a dice-free combat system, which I'll be honest did pique my interest. And of course the game will be packed full of Steamforged's famous miniatures. If this board game adaptation of Elden Ring comes anywhere close to the global powerhouse that Elden Ring proved to be, I think a lot of people are going to be going back to the lands between, fighting for their lives sometime soon. And I'm interested to know how much of the video game's narrative is duplicated, added to, even expounded on. But we will know soon. Another thing we'll know soon is who the sponsor who made this video possible is.
This episode was made possible in part by Wave 9 of the World of Tanks miniatures game from Gale Force 9. Bring the online game of tactically tussling tanks to your tabletop with the World of Tanks miniatures game. An easy to learn, quick to play game where players take command of a unit of tanks, seeking to destroy their opponents and secure victory. Every set of models for World of Tanks comes fully assembled, painted, and battle ready, and Wave 9 is no exception, introducing 4 powerful new opponents. The German Jäger is a 1-tank army, which sounds wonderfully efficient. All this tank needs is a clear line of sight and a target. The British Archer is a unique way to bring a lot of firepower to the table for a low cost. The Soviet Su-85 is a highly mobile tank destroyer, great at sniping enemies from the back of the battlefield. And the American M18 Hellcat is an aggressive tank destroyer that's up for any challenge on the battlefield, whether it's enemy tanks, harsh terrain, or challenging calculus problems. Waves 1 through 8 are available now, and pre-order Wave 9 by following the link in this video's description. Thanks!
The latest iteration of Pandemic has been announced by Z-Man Games, and following on from the World of Warcraft Wrath of the Lich King, the next IP-based game will be Star Wars: The Clone Wars. We are told to prepare to traverse the galaxy where iconic Jedi heroes utilize the familiar gameplay mechanisms of the Pandemic series, but this time planets under siege populate the game board as players take on the role of Jedi travelling from battle to battle, teaming up and fighting off the separatist threat, but battle droids attack on sight and a planet invaded by too many will fall under a blockade, hindering Jedi from liberating it from the enemy or accomplishing their missions. But not only that, the players have to work together to confront the onslaught of droids by moving into their spaces and engaging them in combat using dice and squad cards to deal damage and push back the threat. Ever since playing the very long title of World of Warcraft Wrath of the Lich King, which is based on an IP that I've no particular fondness of or affinity for, I am sold on these new versions of the game. Wrath of the Lich King is my favourite Pandemic, so maybe there's finally the Star Wars game for me. And I'm very excited to try this version out. And if they come out with a Stargate and or a Star Wars version of Pandemic, I'm gonna lose my mind. Star Wars: The Clone Wars will play 1 to 5 players and should be out this month. Dwarf Romantic was the peaceful tile laying video game that caught us board gamers off guard last year with its addictive gameplay and just calming and idyllic style. It really looked and felt like a board game, and I remember saying at the time that there was no way that this game wouldn't be picked up for a board game version, and I, along with many others, was right! As Dwarf Romantic, the board game is available at Essen from Pegasus Spiel. Rippling rivers, rustling forests and wheat fields, swaying gently in the wind. The video game from the small developer studio Tucana Interactive really is fantastic. And in Dwarf Romantic, the board game, up to 6 players will work together to lay hexagonal tiles to create a beautiful landscape and try to fulfill the orders of the population, while at the same time trying to lay as long a train and river as possible. Players must also take into account the flags that provide points in enclosed areas, and the better the players manage to do this, the more points they can earn, and at the end of a replayable campaign, interesting, the points earned can be used to unlock new tiles that are hidden initially in locked boxes that pose new additional tasks for the players and make it possible to raise the high score higher. Ticket to Ride Northern Lights has been announced, a new standalone game in the Ticket to Ride series for release in Scandinavia only? What? Why? I want this. Well, they did say the same thing about Nordic countries, which got a general release, and I remember there being an uproar about Ticket to Ride Poland, which also got a general release, because people, including me, I'm people, wouldn't stop going on about it. Northern Lights is designed for 2 to 5 players and introduces various endgame bonus cards, of which 4 of the 11 are selected every game. So there are games where, for example, the longest route gives extra points, but in other games you'll score points for using the least amount of trains. The map depicts Finland, Sweden, Norway and Denmark, along with some other neighbouring countries and cities, and includes some classic game features such as port cities and ferries. I love Nordic countries. It might be my favourite in the series, so I'm hoping to see this get a wide release at some point in the future. The 1 to 5 player Rebuilding Seattle has been announced by WizKids, where after the Great Fire of 1889 has burned down most of the downtown city, you are the city planners tasked with rebuilding it, and as such will have to manage economic resources to improve neighbourhoods, erect new buildings, iconic landmarks, and of course address the needs of an ever-growing population to make Seattle better than ever. Seattle peaked between the years of 1993 and 2004, but that was because Frasier was my favourite TV show as a child, which I imagine explains like 70% of my personality. Each round in the game, your population grows and you can either build a new building, expand into a new suburb, activate an event, or build a landmark before earning profit based on your neighbourhood's commerce. There's a shared market board where you'll be looking to find the polyomino shapes that both fit your grid and your strategy. There are citywide events and you can even enact laws to give yourself the advantage, and I have to play this game. It really hits a lot of the buttons I like, so I'm excited for its release, currently scheduled for January. Catch-up Games have announced the 1 to 6 player After Us for release in February, where it's the year 2083, and humankind died out decades ago, leaving behind mere vestiges of his time on Earth. Nature has reclaimed the land and the apes have quickly been evolving, gathering in tribes and are beginning to master human items, and as such, as the leader of one of these tribes, you need to guide it towards collective intelligence. After Us is set to be a deck building and resource management game featuring a combo system, which sounds good to me. I like combos. Starting only with tamarins, you'll combine your cards each turn to collect resources and gather victory points, as well as attracting new apes into your tribe, from powerful gorillas, resourceful orangutans, versatile chimpanzees, and wise mandrills. I really wanted to highlight a series of games on Kickstarter at the moment called the Peg Pastime Board Games of Ancient Egypt, because it looks so interesting to me. New Venture Games specialised in casual board and card games, and then they launched a series of successful Kickstarter campaigns to put together a collection of historic strategy games from all around the world called the Peg Pastimes, of which there are now at least 40 in the series. They make a lot of games, and what I like is that they highlight and resurrect games from history, as is the case with the latest Peg Pastimes Kickstarter, which features Senate, Hounds and Jackals, Tab, Meehan and Aseb. And honestly, I really feel like the project and company come from a love and reverence for the history and story of the games that got us to where we are today. So you can check out the Kickstarter now as it enters the last couple of days. Yellow and Yangtze, the sister game to the classic Knizia masterpiece, I said it, Tigris and Euphrates, is being reprinted and reborn as Huang, coming from Phalanx Games, and is set to crowdfund next year. In Huang, players build civilizations through tile placement. Players are given 5 different leaders: a governor, soldier, farmer, trader and artisans, and the leaders are used to collect victory points of the same categories. However, your score at the end of the game is the number of points in your weakest category. Yellow and Yangtze is one of my favourite games of all time. And this new edition will have both a standard and deluxe pledge option, as well as 3 expansions, the first of which is the Royal Palace, which adds new game elements, as well as the deluxe option, which will come with 5 sets of leader minis that will be anthropomorphic representations of animals from the Chinese zodiac, the dragon, goat, rabbit, rat and tiger, to replace the leader tiles to the standard version of the game. And that's the news. But for all the games releasing right now at Essen, continue on to find Chaz's mega list of over 40 games he's excited about, and I'll see you over there.